And if they had, Kenny Pickett would be 5-0. His numbers would be exactly what they are. And Pitt would be ranked, and Pitt would be hurtling pretty quickly towards a Clemson showdown that would be Kenny Pickett's chance to really impress people. Be that as it may, if Pitt keeps stacking wins, yes, including against a down Clemson team that still will be favored against them, and Kenny Pickett keeps putting up numbers, I know this sounds crazy, he absolutely then would deserve serious consideration. Just because a guy isn't going to a traditional powerhouse doesn't mean that he doesn't deserve a real look. And Kenny Pickett has the one other thing that Larry Fitzgerald, of course, who should have won the Heisman in 2003, didn't have going for him. And that's the fact that he's a quarterback, and quarterbacks tend to win this thing.
That is entirely true. You mentioned the game against Clemson. That's one date I'm looking forward to. That would probably legitimize it more, in my opinion. The other date I'm looking at, they still got to face Virginia Tech. Those are the two games I'm looking at that I think are really, really important. 412-575-2600. We got Cliff in Washington. Cliff, you're on the Nightly Sports Call. Hey, Cliff, you there? We got to skip past Cliff. Let's go to Anthony in Oakland. Anthony, you're on the Nightly Sports Call. Starting to wonder if we're having issues with the phone lines. While we sort that out, I got a question on Twitter while we try to figure out what's going on with the phone lines. We got George on Twitter, Chris, who says, seriously, what is the quarterback situation for the Steelers next season? They have to draft a quarterback, but what do you think of them picking up Kenny Pickett? Do you see him as a future franchise player, or do they pick up a veteran like Aaron Rodgers? Here's the question that I've gotten from a few different people. I've actually gotten those questions divided, not at the same time. But the latter question is harder to see happening. It's what I think a lot of people want. I think you and I are both on that train. But it will be the Steelers going against what they normally do. The first thing of them picking up Kenny Pickett, it will come down to A, what Kenny Pickett does the rest of the season, and B, where the Steelers pick, which will have to involve what they do the rest of the season. But if there was a chance, let's say Kenny Pickett's available end of day 2, are you looking at him as a possibility for the Steelers, Chris?
Available end of day 2.
Beginning of day 3,
maybe. I think end of day 2 or sometime on day 2 is where he's playing himself into here. He's not a first-round pick. I'm trying to think of a guy that he reminds me of in the NFL, the rough arm strength equivalent, arm talent, and general mobility, because Pickett's a decent-sized guy, 6'2" or so, pretty mobile. You know what he actually reminds me of is a guy playing right now, Derek Carr, a little bit. I think Carr's obviously more polished. Carr's obviously had big-time NFL success. But if you're looking for a basic physical template, a pretty athletic, pretty mobile guy with a good arm, that's probably like your best-case Kenny Pickett scenario. And that doesn't really equate to franchise quarterback for me. I mean, Derek Carr is one of those hall of good, at times very good quarterbacks in this day and age. But the one year he had a really great year, he got hurt and couldn't prove that he could do it in the playoffs. I would probably shy away from Pickett. The last time Kevin Colbert made picks based on seeing guys light it up at Heinz Field, we ended up with Mason Rudolph as a first-round graded quarterback. So let's go with a big old thumbs down, as much as I'm enjoying the Kenny Pickett story. And it's also, by the way, the Steelers' bad luck that it doesn't look like anybody in this draft class at quarterback is lighting the world on fire. The guy I've seen, Josh, I don't know about you, if you've had a chance to catch as many college games as maybe you'd like, Desmond Ridder at Cincinnati. I like the swagger. I like the moxie. I like the athletic ability. I like the arm talent. What does that add up to at the NFL level? Who knows? Which is a very long-winded way, I'm sorry, of saying the following. Trade 2 first-round picks for 5 years of Aaron Rodgers. Please, Art, Kevin, Mike, I'm begging you. You just saw what it looked like when a real quarterback, the reigning MVP, is on the other sideline. He throws seeds on 3rd and 8, not checkdowns 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. You traded a first for Minka, and he's been, give me 2 firsts for Aaron Rodgers. I'll sign in blood and drive to Green Bay to bring him back to Pittsburgh.
The way you laid that case out, it's hard to argue against, but I'm glad you brought up the quarterbacks in the draft, because as much as we've heard about the Spencer Rattlers of the world and the Sam Howells of the world, the Desmond Ridders catch your attention more because they're doing the small things right. Now, Sam Howell, the first 2 years...
Rattler looks terrible.
He does look terrible. And Sam Howell, the first 2 years at North Carolina, he's starting as a freshman, starting as a sophomore, he was a very efficient quarterback. He was able to push the ball down the field. He made good throws and made good decisions. It doesn't look that way this season for North Carolina. I don't know if it's because maybe the personnel has changed, But Sam Howell this season doesn't look as strong as he did the previous couple years. So it's hard for me to take guys like Rattler and Sam Howell seriously when we were expected to see these guys as the bigger guys heading in. It also doesn't help that there's a kid that has Pittsburgh pedigree, is out for the rest of the season, and Phil Dracovic. That kind of messes things up too. So yeah, the quarterback class that we might be looking at here, there's no head and shoulders guy, but here's the other thing. We don't know if the Steelers are going to have a shot at him, because if you're going to try to get that head and shoulders guy, you're going to have to pick in the first 3 picks. And there are some teams in this league that are worse than the Steelers are, that they're going to get a better shot at that pick than the Steelers will. There aren't many, but they'll have a better shot at that pick than the Steelers will.
The Texans are the worst team in football. They're going to have their pick of the litter. We'll see what they do with that.
And they'll need that
on
pick
the Texans going 1-16. They're a mess. I can honestly say that while Mike Tomlin has, a habit of kind of rallying the troops when things are down, I really see this as a 5-12 type of team. I think 4-13 is absolutely in the cards for them. I do not see the quarterback getting better. I only see him getting worse if they continue to trot him out there. So you say, will they have a shot at one of these guys? Yes, absolutely. But I think at this rate, what they'd be better off doing if they're not going to trade for Rodgers is not even bother drafting one of these kids and take the best left tackle available. That's what I would do.
And that's not a terrible idea, because if, like we're talking about here, let's go with the scenario I laid out. Let's say there's a quarterback that either hasn't really separated himself that they may not like as much, or let's say they end up somewhere like in the 8th or 9th pick where the top quarterbacks are gone in the first 6 picks like they were 3 years ago. Then offensive line might be your next move. Maybe taking the tackle is your move. Maybe taking another position that's there
from Iowa
is your move. The center from Iowa might be a play, and maybe move Kendrick Green to guard. That might be a thought. So, yeah, I just have this hard time believing. And you brought up Mike Tomlin rallying the troops. That's kind of why I feel this way. I feel like this team has the opportunity to totally throw this in the toilet and put themselves in a position for one of those picks like you're talking about. But I feel like they have too much pride to want to do that. And they're going to try to keep winning games, and they're going to try to keep putting this thing in front of us that they're trying to compete when we all know that they're probably not capable of doing it. That's what ruins my thought of this team trying to draft a quarterback and starting all over again like they did 18 years ago. But I just, for some odd reason.
They got lucky, though.
They did.
They got lucky 18 years ago. Quarterbacks weren't, they were always valued to a great degree, but even 18 years ago, it was looked at differently. They go 6-10, they get the 11th pick. They get lucky that Bill Cowher gets overruled or whatever on Sean Andrews, the big guard or the big tackle from Arkansas, I want to say it was, and they get Roethlisberger, who was the most physically gifted guy of those top 3 quarterbacks taken. He just didn't have the pedigree or the big school name by him. They got very lucky, though.
They also got lucky
here's the other problem. Here's the other problem, Josh, I'll say to you. I will say this. As far as them getting like one of the first 3 or 5 picks, if Roethlisberger stays the quarterback, I think there's a better chance that they can't rally the troops because he's going to keep doing what he wants to do on that side of the ball, running his offense. And I think that's going to lead to more losses than maybe them sort of galvanizing behind, say, Mason Rudolph, as crazy as that sounds.
Yeah, and I'll point this out too. Steelers also got lucky because Eli Manning pulled a John Elway with the Chargers and told him not to draft him. So he ended up being a Giant. And if the Giants didn't get Eli Manning, they were going to get Ben Roethlisberger. So a couple things had to break right for that to happen. Got to take another break. We'll sort out some more when we come back. Stick around.